Hello book lovers, and welcome back, or welcome to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today we will be doing one of my favorite videos, and that is my February TBR. Alright guys, so she is back, my TBR game board. I did not play this game in January because I was taking part in Squash That Series, or I'm still taking part in Squash That Series, but she is now back, and so we will go ahead and play this game. But before we get into that, I have a couple of housekeeping things that I want to go through. As always, I will have my playlist linked up above. There you can see past rounds as well as the instruction video if you would like to see the rules of this game, but usually it is pretty easy to grasp. It is based off of the German game Mensch ärgere dich nicht, but that game is more commonly known here in the US as Parcheesi. This month we have a few things that are going on, which made putting this TBR together a little bit messy. First of all, as I mentioned, I was taking part in a Squash That Series. This readathon is actually going through February 6th, so there will be a few days in February where I am still focusing primarily on continuing series. I did not really put series on this TBR other than one book, and so I may be screwing myself over a little bit by not being able to work on any of my TBR books until the 7th of the month, but we will see how that works. That readathon is hosted by Bailey from Is a Bailey Reading and Kayla Ray Reads. I will go ahead and link them both down below. Obviously, too late to be joining into the readathon this round. They have done this readathon a few times and will continue to do so, so if you would like to join in the future, definitely go ahead and check them out. Another readathon I'm taking part in this month is the Heartstopper readathon. This is hosted by Martina Just Martine, and this is luckily a pretty chill readathon. It is obviously based off of the Heartstopper books, and this month it is kind of Valentine's Day themed. Nick is needing our help to plan a special day for him and Charlie, so I will go ahead and go through those prompts and what books I will be reading for it. Finally, Expedition Through Pages has their TBR game Tales from Two Trails, and usually they allow their viewers to take part as well. Starting in February, they have switched things up a little bit where there is actually teams, and she and her mother will be competing against each other, and we have been assigned to a team leader. I am on Kim's team, Team B, and we have 3 prompts that we need to fulfill, and so I will be trying to do that. 2 more things. 1, I am getting KU this month, so pretty much all the books that are on my TBR are on KU. Unfortunately, that means I'm not going to be making like any progress in my physical TBR, but I've been doing a really good job with that during January, so I don't feel too bad about it. The final thing, at the end of this video, I will be selecting my first challenge book. I will link the original video up above. This is a challenge that I have set for myself here in 2024. I picked out 10 intimidating books. I put them in this little man cup, and each month, February through November, I will pick out one of these books and I will have to go ahead and read them. All right, so that should be all the housekeeping. As far as my game goes, I usually decide if I need to start off with a reward or a punishment, depending on if I completed my TBR from a couple months ago. In this case, we are looking at December. In December, I did things a little differently because I did my Christmas bingo board, and so I'm not going to go through all of the prompts that I picked just because there's a lot of them. I'm just going to go ahead and let you see the completed bingo board. My goal was to get 1 vertical and 1 horizontal bingo in order for me to consider this a success, and I obviously did that. I actually read all the books on here except for 1, and that was just because that hold never came in to me from Libby. So that being said, I will go ahead and start this round with a reward, but one thing I didn't forget is in December, I did have to take a punishment. However, I ended up pulling +2 rolls, which considering I had a designated amount of space on my bingo board, I decided I would go ahead and push this to February. So I do need to start off with 7 rolls when I usually only do 5 rolls for my TBR. All right, we've been talking a long time and we're going to be doing a lot more talking because we have a lot of books to talk through. So let's go ahead and go to Natalie by the game board. She will pull that reward prompt and go into roll number 1. All right, guys, here we are at the board again. This is what it looked like after I played it in December, since as I probably mentioned, I did not play it in January. We do have our +2 rolls here that we're carrying over, but we are also gonna go ahead and take a reward. Let's see what we get. Take this one. All right, well, considering I have to pull more, this might be good. So double up, this means that I can double up on prompts and I only need to select 1 book for that. All right, and let's go ahead and get into roll number 1 out of 7. A romance, perfect for February. And we got a 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so LGBTQ plus author. All right, so roll number 1, we landed on romance, and the prompt was to select a book that was written by a queer author. And for this, I have gone ahead and selected With a Vengeance by Freydis Moon. And I do have this author listed under my known queer author list, so hopefully I correctly categorize that. And this is, I believe, kind of a monster romance, or I guess it would be more a demon romance. And after reading the synopsis, I am a little bit confused. It seems like there is a lot going on. I believe we are following a non-binary character, as they were using they them pronouns throughout the synopsis, and talked a little bit about dysphoria in the synopsis as well. In this book, we are following Kai, I believe that's how you pronounce their name, and they are returning home after the death of their estranged mother to kind of settle her affairs. And while they are there, they seem to make a deal with a demon. This deal seems relatively kinky, if I'm reading it right. It seems like they are willing to sell their soul in exchange for pain and pleasure. It seems like alongside this romance, they are also starting to learn some more secrets about their family and maybe even their town, and there seems to be other people interested in these secrets, and our character is kind of stepping up maybe to save the family legacy or whatnot, the family business. But I am very intrigued to get into this. This is written by a Hispanic author, and one of my goals this year was to read more Hispanic authors. All right, getting into a roll number 2 out of 7. A horror thriller mystery. And we got a 1. Okay. So because I don't have anyone out, I obviously need to move one of these, and that does kick romance back home, which means that I now have to do 8 rolls. And we are going to go ahead and pull the one that I just pulled, and that is a main character with a disability. Roll number 2 ended up being a horror thriller mystery, and this was to have a main character with a disability. For this book, I have selected It's a Witchcraft, which is the 5th book in the Criminal Intentions series by Cole McCade. Sean J, one of our main characters, does have autism. This is the one book that I will probably read in the first week of the month, since it is a continuation of a series. I have been getting more and more into the series as I read it. We are following Sonjay as well as Malcolm, and they are both homicide detectives for the Baltimore Police Department. And in each book, we are following them as they follow different murders. But I feel like all of these individual crimes are leading them to bigger fish to catch. This is a very slow burn romance as well between our 2 characters. characters, and I have really been enjoying the character development and just learning more about the characters throughout this series. I really enjoy Cole McCade's writing, so I am very excited to be able to make more progress in this series. I am hoping to finish it by the end of the year, but we are on book 5 out of 11 so far. All right, on to roll 3 out of 8 now. We have a sci-fi. And we have a 6, so we got to take someone out unless 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Obviously, he can't knock out one of his own people, so we'll go ahead and move this guy instead. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so 2023 new favorite author. This is a new prompt that I did where I did an Instagram post where I talked about some of my new favorite authors that I read in 2023. Hopefully one of those was a sci-fi author, and I'll have to read another book by that person. Rule number 3 was a sci-fi, and this was to be written by one of the new authors that I fell in love with in 2023. The author I selected was Chuck Tingle, who wrote Camp Damascus, and I am choosing Straight. This is a book that is older than Camp Damascus. I believe it was written back in 2021, and I think it's a novella. It's relatively short, and from what I know, it is kind of a, I don't want to say a plague story, but it seems that one day out of the year, all the straight people go really crazy and they try to kill everyone around them, and we're following a group of queer people who kind of scurry off into the desert in hopes of avoiding being killed. I'm really interested in his horror. I'm kind of wondering if this will lean more towards humor or more towards horror, because the author has definitely dabbled in both of those genres, but I'm super excited to check this one out. Unfortunately, not available on KU, and I will have to purchase it, but I know that I have enjoyed this author in the past, so I'm more than happy to do that. Moving on to roll number 4 out of 8, we have a historical and a 6, so I gotta take someone out again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. A historical that is by an Asian author. Rule number 4 was a historical, and this was to be written by an Asian author. And for this one, I went ahead and selected The Girl Who Kept Winter by Gao Chi. Now, this is probably definitely leaning more fantasy, but it is set in ancient Asia, and I did want to stick mostly with KU books, and this one is available on a KU. This once again is a book where I read the synopsis and I was kind of like, okay, I think I'll just have to read the book to really figure out what's going on. It seems we are following a young woman whose family owns a dojo, and they are asking her to marry a man that she is not at all interested in marrying because it would be beneficial for the family. However, before the wedding occurs, she ends up getting kidnapped by some martial artists who, I don't know why they take her, but they do. And while she is there, she ends up falling in love with one of the fighters who is known for being like literally poisonous, like touching him could kill you. Besides that, I don't know what else is happening in the story, but this is a YA, so I'm assuming that the romance is going to be the biggest part of the story. Another good thing about this book is that it is translated, and I was hoping to read more translated literature this year. Roll number 5 out of 8. Whoa, way over there, but it is a romance. I really hope I don't get a 2, 3, or 4. I got a 6, perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Broad, and that is an adult book. All right, next we got another romance, and this was with the prompt of adult. And for this one, I decided to select Pucking Around by Emily Rath. And this is a relatively long book. I think on Kindle it is about 700 pages. And from what I hear, it's 700 pages of pure smut. So I don't know if I will read this in one go or if I will need a break, especially since I have quite a few smutty books on my TBR, but it's February, it's Valentine's Day, and this is a polyamorous romance, which I really enjoy, or I think it might be leaning more towards why choose than polyamorous, though I do believe there is some sword crossing, as people call it. We have a woman who has a one night stand, I believe, with a man, and when she shows up at her new job for a hockey team, she realizes that she will be working with him, and I believe they kind of start a relationship, and two of the players end up joining them. So I have a feeling that this is going to be just a fun time. I've heard a lot of great things about it, and I'm really excited to check it out. Rule number 6 out of 8. A fantasy. That is a 1. Let's move this guy. Why not? Color wheel. So I'll just need to go ahead and spin a color wheel and choose a book that is primarily that color. For roll number 6, we got another fantasy, and this was for a color wheel. As I believe I already showed you, the color I got was blue, so I decided to select The Deep by Rivers Solomon. This is an author I've really been wanting to check out for a while, and this book is also super short. I will be listening to the audiobook, which I think is only around 4 hours long. From what I remember of the synopsis, we are following a young person. I can't remember if it was a male, female, non-binary, but they are a mermaid. And these mermaids are descendants of slaves who were thrown overboard during the slave trade. And it seems that there is only one person within their community that holds all of the memories and trauma of their people, and we are following the point of view of the person that is currently holding all of that trauma. But obviously they don't want to do that, because why would you? So I have a feeling it's going to be a really impactful and interesting read, and I'm super excited to check out this author, especially since plenty of their other books are intriguing to me as well. And we're moving on to rule number 7 out of 8. Another fantasy. That was kind of a bad roll. And a 3. So 1, 2, 3. This is a fantasy that has a person on the cover. Book number 7 got us another fantasy, and this was to have a person on the cover. For this one, I have selected Sweet Vengeance, and I'm about to butcher this author's name. Viano Onyamo is how I'm gonna go ahead and pronounce that. And this is another monster romance, or I guess demon romance. And this book is between a woman who is looking to summon a demon to kill, destroy, get revenge on the man who ruined her life, and a demon who is looking to make a deal with a human so that he does not have to return to hell. And then obviously the two of them find that they are quite compatible, and I'm assuming it's going to be a smutty good. All right, and what should be our final roll? 8 out of 8. Another fantasy. No contemporary. I always say this dice is weighted towards contemporary, but clearly not. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Involves travel, so one of those journey fantasies. And for our final roll, we got another fantasy, but this one was to include travel, and I've gone with The Balance of Fate by Raquel Rylan, and this is a sapphic romance. We seem to have a witch who is traveling to some sort of school of sorts, or somewhere where this competition is held, where she will go up against vampires and werewolves to prove that she is capable of being the next leader of her coven. But there she starts to fall in love with a vampire, and she starts to wonder how she can keep the traditions of her coven while also being with someone that she is not supposed to be with. Now, How much travel does this have? I don't know, but the word travel was mentioned in the synopsis, so I decided to go ahead and select this book. All right, so those are the prompts for my TBR. I'm gonna go through the prompts for the Tales for Two Trails. That is 3 prompts. The first one was based off of a random song, so I went to my YouTube and just shuffled my music, and I got Out of My League by Fitz and the Tantrums. This is pretty much a song about a guy talking about meeting and falling for a girl that is out of his league. Surprise, surprise. I ended up choosing With a Vengeance for this. How good is it? I don't know. We are dealing with someone who has a lot of trauma, someone who has depression, someone has dysphoria. They may not think very highly of themselves and think that they deserve, you know, true happiness and romance and love and all those things, and they find this in their demonic partner. So that is why I went ahead and selected it for this prompt. Next prompt is a seasonal read, and I chose The Girl Who Kept Winter for this. It is currently winter where I live, and obviously it has the word winter in the title, but it also mentions that certain elements like wind and snow are included in this book as well. The final prompt was Wordle, and Kim ended up playing Wordle, and the word ended up being tweak. And for this, I selected The Balance of Fates because she went there with a certain plan in mind and she fell in love with someone that she wasn't supposed to. So she is wondering if she needs to tweak her plans or maybe even tweak the traditions of her entire coven to allow her to be with this person. So those are the 3 books that I am going to read for this. I will say I have till the 25th to complete these 3 books, so I will definitely try to prioritize them. Now going into the Heartstopper prompts, I'm going to go through these relatively quickly just because there is a lot of them, and for the most part most of them are repeats of what I already went through. The first prompt was a surprise prompt, and this was to randomize, and I decided to just use my color wheel prompt where I chose a random color. So for this, I will go ahead and read The Deep by Rivers Solomon. I'm actually going to hold my computer here so that I can go through them a little bit quicker. So first we have the snacks category, and here are all of the prompts for that, starting with milkshakes, an oldie but a goodie. For this, I went with Straight by Chuck Tingle, and I decided to go with this one because it is technically a backlog book because it was written in 2021, not super old, but old enough, and also because this is a author that I have read before and enjoyed. Next we have Nick's Famous Homemade Cookies, which was a homemade book. This could include a self-published book. Most of the books that I'm reading this month are self-published, so I could technically use most of them, but I put Sweet Vengeance in for this prompt. Next we have Curly Fries, and this is a book you can share, and this is one of the few books that I'm adding on. I will probably wait until closer to the end of the month to read this, but hopefully I still get to it. It is a reread, and that is Mary Bird and the Ever After by Jodi Lynn Anderson. This book, you can tell I've had it since a child. She's looking a bit crusty, but this is a book that I really enjoyed as a kid, and me and my sister both read this series and really enjoyed it. I know that when I reread it, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to her to be like, hey, guess what book I'm reading, and maybe even to let her know, you know, what my thoughts on it were and how it stood up. I have to admit, at this point, I don't remember too much from the story. We are obviously following a young girl, and I believe she finds a way to cross over into the world of the dead, and she needs to find her way back home. So I would say maybe a dark Alice in Wonderland, maybe a little bit of Caroline vibes going on here, but I am definitely excited to see how much I still enjoy this, and hopefully it doesn't taint my opinion of it by me absolutely hating it or anything like that. Next, we have the date ideas where they could go for an event or an activity. The first one is technically cinema and an adaptation. I don't have any books that apply to that, so I will not be fulfilling this prompt. However, the next one, Park, a simple read, I'm putting pucking around. Yes, it's 700 pages, but it's 700 pages of smut. When I tell you I will probably not use a single brain cell reading this, it's going to be an easy read for sure. Simple. Next we have Bowling, trying to get a strike. So this usually means like a book that you think is going to be 5 stars. I went ahead and chose It's Witchcraft. This is a series I've really been enjoying. Technically, I haven't given any of them 5 stars, but it's been really close, and something that happened at the end of the last book made me think that things are only going to get more exciting. So I would not be surprised if this was a 5-star. Next we have what they're going to be doing kind of once they're at home. First we have Mario Kart, which is a book that has lapped you. This is just kind of a book that has been on your TBR for a while. You keep meaning to get to it, but you haven't. And the book that I put on here was The Deep by Rivers Solomon. I have had this on my TBR for a while. It's super short. I'm like, why have I not gotten to you? But I haven't, but I will this month. Next we have Snuggles, a book that feels like a warm hug. I went with Sweet Vengeance for this one because it seems like the romance book that is going to be the fluffiest. I mean, there's probably going to be a pretty brutal, maybe slightly gory revenge plot line, but otherwise it's just going to be a cute, fluffy romance compared to what else I'm reading. Next we have Baking, a book with lots of ingredients. So in this case, I chose Pucking Around because it is a why choose romance. So there are a bunch of love interests and a bunch of people, probably in one bed. So that's what I'm going with. By the way, I didn't really mention this, but you could use a book for multiple prompts as long as it's not within the same category. Next, we have the category of surprise guest. The first one is Oliver, who I believe is Charlie's little brother, and this says a book with youthful energy. For this one, I will be reading The Girl Who Capped Winter. This is the only YA story I have on my TBR, and it also says that the story explores the concept of like first time love, which is definitely a youthful experience. Next, we have Nellie, who is Nick's dog. Yeah, Nick's dog, and that is a faithful friend. I will be doing It's Witchcraft because this will be the 8th book that I read by Cole McCade. He has yet to let me down, so he is definitely a faithful friend. Last in this category is Henry, who is Nick's new dog or Charlie's new dog. I don't know whose dog he is. And it is a new edition. So this is the newest book that you added to your TBR. Now, none of the books that I selected already apply to that. So I went ahead and because it's February, I kind of looked at my list of books by Black authors. The newest one that I added that I could read as an audiobook, and I got Delicious Monsters by Liselle Sambury. So I will be reading this. This is a horror, a YA horror, which is a genre I usually really enjoy. I think it involves a haunted house or some sort of cursed house situation. I don't know too much about it, but I know I've seen it at least on one person's favorite books of the year list, so I'm definitely excited to check it out. And then the final category is gifts, and I will say that I only am fulfilling one of these prompts, and that is the framed photo, a book with a fond memory attached. And for that, this Mary Bird and the Ever After will apply for that as well. As for the personalized drumsticks related to something else you love and signed copy of Charlie's favorite book, a personalized book, I didn't have anything for either of those, so I definitely have to get to this one if I want to win at this readathon. All right, guys, so far I feel like this TBR is manageable, especially since I was able to do a lot of crossovers, and some of these books aren't too long. A lot of them are romances, which I definitely read a lot quicker, but now we have to choose a challenging book, and some of these are long AF, and I'm this could really not just throw a wrench into things, but like a whole toolbox. So I'm shaking it up. I have to admit at this point I don't even remember all the books that are in here. I'm really scared. I don't know why I did this to myself. Okay, we're just gonna crunch those papers. A little bit of paper ASMR. Let's go with this one. This one. Oh. What does that say? Is it upside? That says 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. In other words, a book that's over 900 pages long. So we're not easing our way into this challenge. There's only one other book that is longer than this in that challenge jar, and that is Don Quixote. One thing I wanted to mention, if I pulled either Don Quixote or this book, is that I have a feeling both of these books will take me probably 2 to 3 months to read, meaning that if during the time while I'm reading IQ 84, if I were to pull Don Quixote as well, you know, like if God decided to strike me with lightning twice in a row, I would have the option of not reading that and pulling another book, because I'm not reading 2 900+ page books at the same time. But that being said, 1Q84, I believe I kept calling it IQ84, but I think it is 1Q84, and this is, like I said, a 900+ page book. It's Murakami's usual magical realism kind of situation. I believe we are following 2 main characters. One is a young woman who starts to realize that when she observes the world very closely, it is very different than it used to be, where she may have possibly traveled to like an alternate dimension. And then we are also following a young man who is a ghostwriter, and I think he gets really obsessed with the story as well as the author. And it did mention that this has some romance in it as well, and I have no idea what to expect. I've read 2 books by this author, did enjoy one of them, didn't enjoy the other one, but the one thing I did realize is that you never know where he's gonna go. You never know. There's so many different characters, and sometimes those characters' stories intertwine, sometimes they just brush against each other, and I mean, it can be really interesting, it can be really confusing. I'm gonna have to get this book from my library. Hopefully I don't have to be on hold for it too long, so I can get started on that as soon as possible. All right, guys, before I wrap up this video, because I'm an idiot and I would like to start my goal of reading 6 nonfiction books, I just want to point out that When They Call You a Terrorist, a Black Lives Matter memoir, is the next nonfiction book I am planning on starting. Will I start it in February with all that I have going on? I don't know, but I should. So I will definitely try to get into it a little bit. I've been meaning to read this book for quite a while, and I've definitely been neglecting my nonfiction since maybe like September. So I am just throwing it out here, just maybe for a little bit of accountability. You know, now that you know that I want to read this, I can't just not read it. So here we go. All right, guys, so those are all the books that I am planning on reading in February, or at least starting in February, because IQ 84 is just not getting finished. I can tell you that right now. That being said, I would love to know if you have read any of these books and what you thought of them. I would also love to know if you're taking a part in the Heartstopper Readathon, or if you are taking part in Expedition Through Pages TBR battle, and whose team you are on. And if you're on Team A, coming for you. All right, guys, thank you so much as always for supporting my channel by watching my videos, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.